I'm in the wrong business. When you say the words unforced error to someone from Boston, there's only one thing that comes to mind.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay. To me, an unforced error is something from tennis, Kevin, who wrote today's episode. I just read it. I'm Simon. Hello. It was October the 25th, 1986. The Red Sox were leading the World Series, 3 games to 2, and in Game 6 they entered... How many games are there? Jesus Christ. Oh my god, I know nothing about sports. And in Game 6 they entered the bottom of the 10th inning with a 5-3 lead. What are you talking about, Kevin? I've heard, bottom of the 9th, but I have no idea what that means. All they had to do was get 3 outs, and the Red Sox would win their first World Series since 1989. Red Sox, I guess, are Boston's team. The first 2 batters were quickly retired, one flying out to right field and another flying out to center. The game seemed all but over, and as the potential final batter for the New York Mets came to the plate, the words, "Congratulations, Boston Red Sox, 1986 World Champions," were displayed on the electronic scoreboard by mistake. The Sox then gave back-to-back singles, allowing the Mets to score a run and bring the lead down to 5-4. Kevin, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it seems like the Red Sox were doing great. It seemed like they'd got it locked in, and then they lost like a bunch of losers. I imagine I'm upsetting baseball people, but I have no idea why. I don't understand. Red Sox? I don't know if they're good or not. I guess they're not. It seems everything was down to the Mets' third baseman, Mookie Wilson, battling against relief pitcher Calvin Schiraldi. On the 6th pitch of the at-bat, Schiraldi threw a wild pitch. 6th pitch, don't know what that means. At-bat, I guess that means he's batting. A wild pitch. Kevin, this is Greek to me. The Mets stole home plate. What does this mean?
I don't know.
Tying up the game and advance the lead runner to scoring position. Kevin! You know I don't know sports, Kevin! A lot of things had to go wrong for the Red Sox to even get to this point, but it was the 10th and final pitch of this at-bat that fans remember as one of the most famously devastating unforced errors in baseball history. Mookie hit a ground ball to first base, one that should have been an easy out. All first baseman Bill Buckner had to do was pick up the ball, step on the bag. What bag? And they'd force an 11th inning. 11 innings? Instead, Buckner ran in front of the ball, reached down with his glove and missed the ball. It rolled right between his legs into the outfield, allowing the Mets to score the winning run and force Game 7. The Mets won the game 7-8-5. It wouldn't be until 2004 that the Red Sox finally broke their 86-year losing streak. What a bunch of losers.
Go to hell!
To become the World Series champions again. Wake up, Simon. The baseball story is over. Kevin, oh my god, I had no idea. How far? 3 minutes? Got no idea what you're talking about, Kevster. To be fair, my need to tell this story in an episode about unforced errors was completely predictable, so perhaps the real unforced errors were the scripts we approved along the way. Yeah, I guess this was my fault. Shame on me. Shame on me. Or maybe it's all the stupid shit the people in today's episode got up to. For example, Drake, who may or may not have been featured in a recent episode of Brain Blaze, depending on what order these come out in. It has already been published. It's already gone out. It's basically a miracle. Placed a $300,000 bet on a gambling app that Canada would defeat Argentina in the Copa America soccer tournament. Oh my god, I didn't even know soccer. What the fuck's Copa America? Copa, C-O-P-A, I don't know. In case anyone doesn't realize how immediately insane that wager is, I don't, Kevin. I barely know that Drake sings. Or raps? Is rapping? I don't know anything. Here's a tiny bit of context. Since 1958, Canada has only even succeeded in qualifying to compete in the World Cup twice. Argentina, on the other hand, is currently considered the strongest country in the world for soccer, and their team captain was Lionel Messi. Okay. I don't know a single thing about Messi because I'm an American and I thus don't care about soccer. I'm British, Kevin, and I don't care either. But the fact that I even I've heard of him, that I recognize his names, means he must be one of the greatest players of all time. I think of David Beckham. Was he one of the greatest players of all time, or is he just famous? Wayne Rooney? Eric Cantona? Literally the only football players I can name. Drake was willing to bet $300,000. Ronaldo. I don't know his first name. Fuck. What's Ronaldo's first name? I really should know this. Ferdinand Ronaldo? Michael? It's not Michael Ronaldo. – Siri, what's Ronaldo's first name? It's telling me something about a band. Fuck off. But that's enough sports for one episode. Oh, thank God. We all like animated, easily excitable Simon. If I talk about sports any longer, I might bore him into a coma. Kevin, I'm already in a fucking coma, mate. So instead, how about an easily preventable global catastrophe? Yes, finally! Global catastrophe is what we need, Kevin, not some sports bullshit. I hate sports, and I love global catastrophe. The CrowdStrike incident. You all may remember that little incident that happened on July the 19th. It was shortly after midnight for those of us on the East Coast, so for those of you on the West Coast, it was still prime time. What about for those of us in Europe, Kevin? Have some... there's not just America, Kevin! And for Simon, it was like 4 a.m. All around the world, people were minding their own business when... when suddenly the internet broke. Like, a lot of it. People across the globe were suddenly face to face with something that was once an expected part of our everyday lives, but has rarely been seen in the last 15 or 20 years. The blue screen of death. Yes. You're like, oh no, I didn't save my work. Oh, blue screen of death, no! Travelers stepped off their airplanes and into airports where every monitor in the entire building was just a blue screen. As a side note, back in my day, the blue screen of death was just a blue screen with a bunch of error reporting text that was absolutely meaningless to the vast majority of people. That's me as well, Kevin. We're about the same age. I'm not sure when it changed, but now the blue screen features a giant frowny face emoticon? That's the correct... I'm doubting my pronunciation of emoticon. Emoticon, which is fucking weird. I've never seen this. Because I use Mac, which never crashes, except when it does. I don't know who's going to feel better seeing that their computer is just as upset as they are, but whatever. Anyway, while it's unlikely that anyone's personal computer was affected, the outage impacted about 8.5 million computers using Windows 10 and 11. However, I was in a place the other day, I think it was the post office, and I looked at their screen and they were using Windows XP. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, what year is it? However, in a shocking turn of events that I never thought I'd live to hear myself say, this wasn't actually Microsoft's fault. The error was caused by a company that none of us had ever heard of before this all went down. CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is an American cybersecurity company known for its Falcon sensor security software. Sounds expensive. The software protects against cyber attacks, viruses, and so on, and CrowdStrike is one of the top names in the industry. The reason none of us have heard of them is because they specialize in security for big companies rather than virus protection for your PC. Yeah, this is one of those things where it's like you'll have never heard of a company, but anyone who works in that field is like, oh, it's enormously important. This company has like 100,000 employees and is one of the biggest companies. And you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like Oracle. Larry Ellison's one of the richest person in the world, but who the f*** has an everyday interaction with Oracle? No one, but they're massive. According to CrowdStrike, they have over 24,000, I suppose people do interact with Oracle, but it's not like you're not interacting with it as Oracle as a layman. So don't get on me about like,
oh, well, it's when you do this. When you connect to somewhere, it's actually Oracle that's driving it.
No one gives a shit, you fucking nerd. Christ, fuck off. According to CrowdStrike, they have I'm not that angry. I don't know. I'm just playing it up. I'm sorry. I love you. They have 24,000 customers worldwide, including about 60% of all Fortune 500 companies. And all of those companies now had computers that no longer worked. Every computer crashed at the same time, and they all entered an endless boot loop of crashing, restarting, and crashing again before the user could ever gain control of the machine. Just boot it up in safe mode. Boom! And the effects were devastating. Thousands of flights across the globe cancelled, leaving people stranded in airports. Although I believe the actual website was unaffected, a lot of Amazon's internal services went down, resulting in shipping delays. FedEx and UPS were both affected as well, and this was seen as disastrous since the outage took place the day after Amazon's Prime Day sale. Oh, people getting their Amazon packages delayed. They're gonna have a cry about it. Amazon have treated everyone too well. Because now it's like, oh, wait, I'm not getting this by 4 o'clock this afternoon? Fuck you, Amazon. Banks also went down, leaving people unable to use ATMs or electronic banking. I'm guessing you wouldn't have had any luck going to a teller either, but it's 2024, so who even does that these days? I don't think I've ever been to a bank to withdraw money from a person. That's some historical shit. I'm pretty sure at this point that the only people that go to the teller to do their banking are just old people that want someone to talk to. I believe it's been that way for 20 years. My nan would go to the post office and get money from a person. And she definitely didn't just have someone to talk to. Credit card processing companies went down as well. So many businesses, like grocery stores, were only able to remain open by switching to cash only for the day. You know, the cash that you weren't able to take out of the ATMs the CrowdStrike had just bricked. Because of the time of day that this happened and the relative speed with which the fix was implemented, all the reports I saw about cash-only grocery stores were out of Australia, but it's possible they extended further. Here in the US, it was pretty late when all of this went down, so not a whole lot was open, but one thing that's always open is Vegas, baby! Not only did casinos lose out on a lot of potential income because compulsive gamblers who were totally due nice. We're no longer able to go grab more cash from the ATM, but a number of electronic slot machines blue-screened as well. Imagine the disappointment someone would feel to hear a voice yell, "Buffalo," and prepare for the dash for cash. What are you talking about, Kevin? Kevin, this has the most references that I don't understand of any script that I've ever recorded, I think. Only to be met with a blue screen frowny face. And if you understood that reference, either you are a degenerate gambler or you have been inexplicably fed a lot of slot machine videos by the YouTube algorithm. Slot machine videos are a thing? Just people playing slot machines? Oh wait, I know that slot machine gambling on like websites was a thing. That was a huge scandal thing. I think YouTube banned that. Quite sensibly, we don't want to encourage people to gamble on slot machines. As for how all of this happened, it was just a colossal fuck up on the part of CrowdStrike. To say that the update used a length 20 array instead of a 21 array, and how C handles this mistake, probably means very little to most of you watching, except for me. I know exactly what that means, but the short version is that I have no idea. There were technical errors like this which could have easily been avoided with proper testing and oversight. Worst of all, the update wasn't done using a staggered rollout. If they had done that, holy shit, dude, you can just roll out an update to your software across everything at once? That's kind of fucking insane. I feel like this would damage their brand reputation because they're a kind of cybersecurity company. You gotta have your shit together. If they had done that, the first systems to receive the update would have broken and CrowdStrike would have been alerted so that they did not continue the update. Instead, the company decided to simultaneously push the new update out to all of their customers at the same time, including those dealing with critical infrastructure. How about you just push it to the ones in your own reception first and see if it works? Just do that. And if Sally the receptionist is like, guys, then you know something's gone wrong. It could also be Stephen the receptionist. Don't get any ideas. It's just the first name that popped into my head. And also the fact that most receptionists are women. As it should be.
I am going to castrate him!
The problems with the code were all really simple, and it took like 2 hours from when this began for a fix to be created. However, all the computers were stuck in a boot loop, so there was no way for CrowdStrike to push a new update out to the systems. Instead, people at each company had to implement the fix manually. It also happened on Friday, meaning that if the issue wasn't fixed that day, then the system could remain down for the entire weekend. Or how about when something like this happens and half the world's computers just stop working, old Trevor just goes in and works the weekends. I think that's kind of fair. It's kind of your business. In total, this little bit of shoddy coding resulted in a total financial damage of over $10 billion. Crash of the Concorde. That's not this year. There have been a lot of bad video games over the years. Oh, okay, so Concorde's some sort of video game? Whether it's E.T. on the Atari, Superman 64, or anything on the NES made by Color Dreams, bad games are as old as video games themselves. I used to be so disappointed by, I'd see a movie and be like, oh, sick, Jurassic Park. And there'll be like, Jurassic Park, the game. And it's always shit. And it was just some game that someone had knocked together in order to make a few bucks off the Jurassic Park IP or whatever the hit movie of the summer was, like Superman or whatever. It'd always suck. And every time I'd get suckered into getting it. But usually these games were made by tiny companies that nobody expects anything from. It's always been rare to see big names responsible for creating an absolute suckfest of visual diarrhea and incompetent gameplay. And for the past 25 years, I thought the absolute peak of how poorly a video game could perform had already been achieved by a little game called Daikantana. Daikantana was made by John Romero, the guy from the book, narrated by Wesley Crusher. Masters of Doom, and he started Doom. There's a great fucking book. The man who brought you Wolfenstein 3D and... Next line, please, teleprompter. Doom! Giant brain! It was meant to be a similar style game, except there was time travel involved and you had a katana in addition to guns. The game's ad campaign even featured the controversial slogan, John Romero's about to make you his bitch, believing the game's sales would heavily capitalize on his previous success. People were excited for the first year or so, but by the time Daikatana finally released in 2000, 4 years after it was announced, it was already a joke. The final product was just a really a Doom clone that required constant pauses for loading in the middle of the levels. The game was bad, and it performed horribly. It is estimated to have cost $30 million to make, but sales barely broke 40,000 copies. Oh, dude, that's really depressing. If each game sells for $20, he's only made $800,000. Revenue. The whole thing was a nightmare, and I never thought we'd see a video game perform this badly again, but then, about a month ago at the time of writing, Sony released the game Concord. The game was originally conceived by the company Probably Monsters and founded by former executives from Bungie in 2016.
Bungo. That's an I, you idiot. Oh, right. Bingo.
Don't Bungie make Half-Life? That should be a good game. But in 2018, they created a subsidy, Firewalk Studios, who would be responsible for the development of Concord. However, even though this game was being created by a third-party studio, they said Sony had been backing them from the beginning. And that certainly makes sense because Firewalk Studios was originally located in the garage of Probably Monsters' founder. While I'm sure plenty of amazing games have been developed in someone's garage, those are likely to be small, independent games with no budget and maybe 1 to 3 people working on it as a labor of love. Wasn't Google started in a garage? Concord, on the other hand, was made up by a team of over 150 people and is estimated to have cost as much as $150 million to develop. Dude. I know, but I was going to say, like, oh, it's, that's a lot of money. You should know if your game works. But then you have, like, summer blockbusters, which are a complete flop, and they cost hundreds of millions to make. So yes, if the owner of Firewalk says that they have Sony's backing from the start, I'm inclined to believe him. Yeah, $150 million, that's some fucking Sony money. In 2021, Sony announced that they would be releasing Concord as a AAA title for PS5 and on PC, and in 2023, Sony bought Firewalk Studios. Now, if you've been paying any attention over the years, you may have noticed that's about 8 years since Concord was in development. By itself, not necessarily a bad thing. One of the things that made Blizzard such a beloved company for so many years, even if fans sometimes found it frustrating, was their total and complete disregard for deadlines and their official company motto of "it's done when it's done." Releasing a high-quality product was all that mattered, especially when they were trying to create something new for the audience. But that's where Concord went wrong, because they weren't trying to do anything new. Although there are other games laying the foundation beforehand, 2016 is really when the hero shooter genre took off. What the fuck's the hero shooter genre? First was the release of Gearbox's Battleborn, quickly followed by Blizzard's Overwatch, which completely overshadowed the competition. I've never played any of these games. I've heard of Overwatch. People really like Overwatch. What's the hero shooter? The creators of Firewalk Studios looked at the success of Overwatch and said, yeah, we should do that too. Pretty sensible business decision. While copying someone else's idea, I mean, they're not really copying their idea. It's like a genre, isn't it? It'd be like saying, like, oh yeah, first-person shooters are good. I'll make something like a first-person shooter, like Quake or whatever. That seems fair. It only works if you can rush your product to market so that you can compete with them. As successful veterans of the industry, this is something they should have been able to recognize. By the time Concord released 8 years later, the hero shooter genre was already dominated by Overwatch 2, Apex Legends, and Valorant. I've not played any of these games. It got worse too. If the game had been released in 2016 when they came up with the idea, Concord would have been fine. Not good, just would have been fine. There was nothing creative or original, the maps were too big, and the character models all looked like trash. Worst of all, though, than suggesting that they hadn't really updated their plans for the game since 2016, Concord had a retail price of $40. Wait, that seems quite reasonable for a game these days. The 3 other games I mentioned are all free to play, and the only stuff you buy is cosmetic. No way! All of those games are free? And they just make money from people buying skins? That's fucking mad! But then again, like companies like Prada just make money by adding their logo to clothes. So, I'm in the wrong business. There is nothing you can buy in the game that has any impact on your ability to win. So why the hell would anyone pay $40 for a game that looked shit and was competing against a bunch of games that you could play for free? Well, turns out they wouldn't. Between PlayStation and Steam, the game only sold 25,000 copies and was supposed to be Sony's big online shooter. But on PC, they never broke 700 concurrent users. On average, there were only 40 to 50 people to play with at a time. Wow, that's so low. Between purchase of Firewalk Studios and development of Concord, it's estimated that Sony lost $200 million. God damn, dude. There's not even a chance that this will turn around and the game will blow up into some cult classic either, because after 2 weeks, Sony took the game offline and refunded everyone's purchase. But with so few copies of the game sold and with so many of them being digital downloads, the real winners are the people who actually bought a physical copy for the PS5, which are now selling for $80 to $100 on eBay. NASA and Boeing make questionable choices. Oh boy, do they. I did a video recently about that Boeing capsule Dream Life or whatever it's called. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm so sick of lazy, creatively bankrupt remakes. Most of the time, they're worse than the original anyway, and it's just a blatant cash grab from the companies involved. And let's be real here, while Gilligan's Island is considered a classic, I'm not sure that it really holds up for modern audiences. Oh my god, Kevin, so many references. I don't know what Gilligan's Island is.
What?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's about a dude called Gilligan who lives on an island. Maybe he's involved in some sort of plane crash, like the Swiss Family Robinson. The idea that somebody could build up a functioning dental drill using coconuts and no power source is ridiculous. Oh my god, did he really get stranded on an island? Yes! It's the Swiss Family Robinson, and people's baseline understanding of technology has increased too much for this sort of nonsense to fly. But NASA and Boeing thought differently. Not about the coconut drill, though. If the premise of a ship embarking on a short mission only to be stranded for months or longer was good enough for Gilligan in the 1960s, then it was good enough for astronauts Anita Williams and Butch Wilmore, the test pilots for the first manned crewed flight of Boeing's Starliner aircraft. Two people who have balls of fucking steel, dude. Boeing has not had the best last few years. Be like, yeah, you want to go up in our experimental space capsule? You'd be like, fuck, no, dude. I want to go to space. That is one of my life's goals. Would I get on this fucking craft? No fucking way, dude. No way. The only problem was that I feel relieved slightly when I'm on a short-haul flight and it's an Airbus A320 rather than a Boeing 737. There were 3 cancelled attempts at launching the Starliner. I thought Dreamliner. Starliner. Oh, Dreamliner is their plane, right? The 777. Yeah, or no, 787. 2 of which weren't scrubbed until the astronauts were already seated in the ship, mere minutes from launch. One of these launches was cancelled on account of a helium leak in Starliner's service module. The leak was discovered in May, and by the actual launch, it hadn't been fixed. Instead, they decided that it was probably fine and wouldn't affect the mission. I'm not sure what the NASA was thinking, but I can't imagine anyone in the year of our Lord 2024 saying, I know the spaceship is already kind of broken, but I think we can just trust Boeing. No. Allegedly. And yet, that's the decision they made, and on June the 5th, the leaky Starliner took off from Earth and began its 24-hour journey to the International Space Station. At least it was supposed to be 24 hours, but 5 of the 28 thrusters on the spacecraft failed, delaying the docking procedure, as these thrusters were needed to maneuver into place and dock properly. Not only did 5 of the thrusters fail, but the one helium leak quickly became 5 helium leaks after launch, one of which was pretty substantial in size. Is there any coincidence that there were 5 helium leaks and 5 failed thrusters on the June 5th launch? Well, yes. Yes, it is. The original plan had been for the mission to last only 8 days. It would take a day to get to the ISS, Williams and Wilmore would spend a week on board the station, and then they would return to Earth. They were even able to get 4 of the malfunctioning thrusters working again, though the 5th was suffering a separate problem from the others. But there were still all those helium leaks, and so Starliner's return was delayed indefinitely. Of course, NASA and Boeing take offense to people using the term stranded to describe the astronauts. Sure, they were supposed to be in space for 8 days, and now can't leave the ISS until February, a solid 8 months after they were supposed to be home.
Oh, poop.
But the term stranded hurts their feelings because it makes them look incompetent. Well, Boeing, if you don't want to have your feelings hurt for looking incompetent, how about you, I don't know, don't be incompetent, allegedly. Although one could argue it was the decision to trust Boeing's spacecraft in the first place that made them look incompetent. More to the point though, Boeing felt that Starliner was fine and the astronauts could absolutely fly at home. NASA strongly disagreed, saying they would not authorize anyone to return home on the Starliner except in an emergency situation. Basically, unless something happened at the ISS that guaranteed certain death for everyone on board, nobody was setting foot on a Boeing. But it's not all doom and gloom. The 61-year-old Wilmore and 58-year-old Williams have both worked on the ISS before, and they quickly adapted to their new reality of spending another 8 months on board the station. Are they old? Because they know it's risk. Like NASA's like, oh, we don't want to send one of our young people who we've spent millions of dollars training, and we don't want to blow them up. We'll send people near retirement. Is that a crazy thought, or do you think NASA thinks that? And by the time this episode airs, Williams will be reprising her role from 2012 as commander of the ISS, a position she will hold until they finally get back home in February. While this was a rather public and colossal fuck-up, it certainly could have been worse for the astronauts involved. I'm sure their families aren't thrilled that the 1-week business trip turned into an 8-month extended stay, but at least they're safe and will be flying home on not a Boeing. Boeing, however, is doing less great. In 2014, they were awarded a $4.2 billion fixed-price contract from NASA to develop Starliner. Starliner, meaning that's all the money they're getting from NASA for this project. And the project, so far, has gone seriously over budget, losing Boeing $1.5 billion so far. Oh my god, Boeing. Considering the first test flight wasn't a resounding success, I'm guessing they're set to lose a lot more than that as well. And oh yes, over the course of this year, Boeing stock has also fallen nearly 50%. Of course, realistically, that probably has less to do with Starliner and more to do with all the planes that are falling apart mid-flight and the Boeing whistleblowers who keep allegedly getting murdered. I don't really believe that Boeing's murdering whistleblowers, but it's a funny coincidence, isn't it? We hope. Thanks for watching.